Jascha, Ely-Halliwill, and I will be your next speaker.
Thank you very much for coming here at NITOC, and congratulations on making it to the final round.
If all of the judges are ready. Sweet. Let's begin. If there's one thing that I thoroughly enjoy in my life, it would be a challenge. But today, I have a challenge for you. The first part of the challenge is pretty easy. The second part of the challenge gets a little bit difficult. Let's do that first an easy challenge really quick. I want you to find a family member of any kind, and then select them. And then after you do, I want you to ask yourself a pretty simplistic question. Do you love them? Pretty easy, right? Not too hard. Now let's that second challenge, the difficult one, the harder one I mentioned. Now, I want you to find someone that you hate. I'm just kidding, you probably don't hate anyone, at least I'd hope. But rather, maybe someone you dislike. Maybe someone you disagree with. Maybe someone you're on bad terms with. I know that person. I know you know that person. After you have selected this person, I want you to ask yourself again that question from before. Do you love them? It's a lot more difficult, isn't it? You see, the majority of people will not love someone who shows hatred towards them, much less someone they're on bad terms with. And because of this, there's a need for the reconditioning of love in the life of a Christian. So today, my speech is going to be about love, but specifically one call to action. Today, I want you judges to love just like Christ, because we're called to be more just like him. Now, before we do begin this speech, I want to get one thing out of the way. You're probably thinking, come on, Jascha, I hear about this all the time when I go to Sunday morning church. But the problem is that if you did select that person that you may have difficulty saying that you love them openly, then this speech is for you. But there's another thing that I want to get out of the way as well. You see, there's a mindset of love that isn't really helpful. There's a mindset of love that actually has become an infection, the trait of charity. And this mindset is how the world views love. You see, the world views love very generally, very broadly. It really isn't helpful. To say the words, I love you, in the world kind of just means I like you more than other people. That's kind of just it. Just no real intention behind that statement. Don't believe me? Let me show you. I would like you to be a stranger. I've never met you before. Just walk across the sidewalk and I happen to see you. Now, you're going to be a friend of mine. I've known you about 10 years. You come in on Sunday afternoon and come and play football with me. Now, if I say to my friend whom I've known for a long time, I say, I love you. It's fine, we can cool, just high five and all. But if I come over to the stranger, whom I've never met before, and I say, I love you, it's a little awkward, a little weird, maybe a little uncomfortable, right? But that's the thing, why? Why is love seen as something that's uncomfortable, or awkward, or weird, or rare? The world has turned something that is supposed to be a compliment into an insult. Let's avoid this mindset and understand that Christians are held to a higher standard of specificity when it comes to love in the life of a Christian. Let's talk about those standards. C.S. Lewis, former atheist, converted to Christianity, wrote in a book called The Four Loves, the ways that Christians can love just like Christ through 4 different categories of love. What we're going to do is dive into these ways and help us understand how we can love just like Christ. The first love that C.S. Lewis writes about is that of storge love, spelled S-T-O-R-G-E. Now, storge love is defined by C.S. Lewis and interpreted by the Greek language to be a parental mentorship kind of love. The kind of love that a parent would have for a child, the kind of love that a mentor would have for a student. It's the kind of love that hinges off of the idea of sacrifice. Now, maybe you have had a kid, or maybe you've seen a kid that whines and complains to you and says, Mom, Dad, you spank me because you hate me. You know that's not true. You know, a true parent doesn't spank their child out of hatred. No, they spank their child out of care because they want them to prevent them from experiencing a worse kind of pain found in hell. A good example is really with God in the Old Testament, who laid out the 10 Commandments, and he said, if you obey these 10 Commandments, there are really good benefits. If you disobey these commandments, there are really harsh consequences. Now, are these consequences here because you just love to watch your children grovel in pain? No. there so he could prevent them from suffering worse kind of pain found in hell. Find someone who needs guidance, leadership, and maybe even discipline if necessary. Apply that, as long as care is the core principle in your life and you're loving just like Christ. Then the second kind of love that C.S. Lewis writes about is that of phileo love, spelled P-H-I-L-E-O. Phileo love is defined by C.S. Lewis and interpreted by the Greek language to be a brotherly, honorable love. A kind of love that two brothers would have for each other, or the kind of love that two soldiers could have for each other as well. Honestly, the best example I could find of this really was with Jonathan and David in the Old Testament. These two were not blood brothers, but they acted like it. They were willing to lay their lives down for each other. And once Jonathan did pass away, David mourned his death more than he did anybody else. Why? Because he loved him like a brother. Find someone who needs a sister, or a brother, or maybe even a best friend. Be willing to sacrifice your time, your person, your heart for that person with dedication and loyalty, and you're loving just like Christ. Now we come to the third type of love. This one's kind of interesting. This one is called eros love, spelled E-R-O-S. Now, eros love is defined by C.S. Lewis as your physical, romantic, caring kind of love. The kind of love that two spouses would have for each other. Now, I'm not going to try to downplay. As a matter of fact, Rabbi Zacharias, famous apologist, once said, quote, that eros love is the strongest act of love you can give to another human being on this planet, end quote. And it really is. The bond between a wife and a husband is nearly unbreakable. But the problem is that the devil has been able to turn eros love into eros lust. A good example of this really is with David, again, as he grew up to be king. When he fell in eros lust with a woman named Bathsheba, was willing to kill her husband out of omission just to have her, and what happened? He lost his son to death. Now, I'm not trying to scare you or say that marriage is conceited. Absolutely not. All I'm saying, as long as your godly relationship is held to the standard of God's word, you're loving just like Christ. Now we talk about the fourth type of love. This one is called agape love, spelled A-G-A-P-E. Now, C.S. Lewis writes this to be the ultimate love. Because when someone says, I love you for who you are, it's a great thing, isn't it? Agape love takes a step farther and says, I love you for who you are and what you are. I don't just love you because you're that friend that comes over on Sunday afternoon to play football with me, but I also love you because you're a human being made in the image of Christ. You don't have to earn my love, you deserve it, just because you exist. You could hurt me, destroy my life, wound me in some of the most unimaginable ways, and I'll still find a way to love you. This is one of the toughest things for me to apply in my life. 2 years ago, I was playing football with my little brother, Caleb, in the park. When I turned around, I saw that my little brother was being attacked by two strangers. I went in to go and defend my little brother, and thankfully he got out safely. But I did not. As a result of the fight, my jaw was broken in 14 different locations. I had surgery done to me 3 times, and I came back home with my jaw wired shut. And when I walked through the door, the first thing that my dad did not tell me was, you'll be fine, Jascha, you'll be okay, don't worry about it. It's not what he told me. The first thing my dad told me when I walked through the door was, you need to forgive those men that did that to you. What? For a 16-year-old kid, this was the most amount of pain I've ever experienced in my life, and you're telling me to forgive them? Yes. Because that pain would turn to bitterness, that bitterness would turn to more bitterness, that bitterness would turn to hatred, and that hatred would hurt me a lot more than my jaw would ever feel. And you know how hard it is for a 16-year-old kid to step out, speak to the air, and say that I forgive those men. Not just that, but up to this day as I stand in front of you, I love them unconditionally despite what they did. Why? Why did I do that? Because I followed the example of Jesus Christ. I mean, put yourself in his position. To have your back whipped to shreds, a crown of thorns put on your head, purple robe upon those burning wounds, everybody you cared and loved turns on you with pure hatred and violence, wanting you dead. Then to carry your death warrant in the shape of a cross on top of a mountain, to have 3 holes pinned in your body as you bleed and suffocate to death in deformed humanity, and to still have the common decency to say to that hole, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing. That is unconditional love. Today we discussed different ways we can love like Christ, whether it be parental love, brotherly love, or even romantic love. I find that second person that you may disagree with, maybe you dislike. If you can't apply the first 3, I ask you to apply the fourth. That is God has called us to do.